Ninja News Japan. I was going to be like, coming back at you. I should have an opening phrase. Maybe that's the next step to make Ninja News Japan the greatest podcast that's ever podcasted, is to come up with an opening phrase that I use every week. It's not going to be like and subscribe. I know that. You don't care about that. You care about the news from Japan, which is why you're here talking or listening to me and I'm talking to you. So let's get to it. The Japan Fair Trade Commission wanted to announce guidelines for ensuring fair transactions between anime and manga creators. And so they did what every company does. They made a pamphlet. The pamphlet's going to be explaining, like, here's how contracts should be laid out. We don't want the artist getting ripped off. We don't want the company getting ripped off. Manga is a traditionally very abusive industry. Like, the hours are long, the pay is very low. It seems very unfair. It seems like the kind of thing you might not want to actually do. What they're focusing on is fair compensation, working conditions, contracts, and they're saying, like, the problem is we're finance people, we're lawyers and that kind of stuff. We have to make this appeal to the artistic types because that's who we're talking to. This needs to go towards manga people. So we should have some maybe manga characters explaining the issues we're talking about. That's a really good idea. So they found a company and they went to this company. They're like, hey, can you make the art for this pamphlet? And that company's like, yes, we can. And then they were like, we don't want to do that. Let's sublet it out. Subcontracted out to another company, and that other company getting way less money. They're like, well, we're going to use AI to create the manga for the pamphlet and sell it back to these people. The secondary company is like, we don't care. We just want to get paid. So they pass it on without checking it. The people at the finance ministry, they're in this situation where, like, we can't tell the difference. We're all lawyers and stuff. We don't read manga, or we're not going to look at it that closely because we're not artistic enough to be able to tell the difference between something that was hand-drawn and AI generated. And then they put it out and everyone's like, hey, douchebags, this is an AI generated pamphlet. You're talking about treating artists fairly. And one of the first things you do to treat artists fairly is use an artist and don't use AI. So the Japan Fair Trade Commission claimed that they reviewed the pamphlet but didn't have the knowledge to recognize AI art. And I actually, to be honest, I kind of believe that. But they should be very angry at that company they contracted to, because that company subcontracted out and they probably didn't tell them they were going to do that. So it's already getting shady. Like, the more levels of subcontracting they are, the worse the product is. And if you're paying a company to do it, my expectation would be that company does it. They don't, like, shunt it off to someone else. So the Fair Trade Commission in Japan actually got kind of scammed, which makes me wonder if they're actually very good at their job. The Japan Finance Ministry, we're getting very big into the Japan finance areas, is considering minting commemorative coins with anime and manga characters. So this very much relates to our last thing. Like, here you have financial institutions saying, like, manga and anime, they are the money makers for Japan right now. We got tourism, we got anime and manga. That's where this country is making our money more than anything else. We have to encourage it. We have to, like, bring it up. But there are actually laws in Japan about what you can put on bills and coins, which I didn't know about. That was the interesting part of this. Them wanting to make a commemorative coin for One Piece or Naruto or something. Okay, that actually makes perfect sense, and it doesn't surprise me. It actually is weird that it hasn't happened already. This is why it hasn't happened already. Currently, the law only permits the use of images pertaining to national interest, like imperial events or the Olympics. But I don't see how the Olympics are more valuable to Japan than manga or anime. I think it's because, again, manga anime is seen as entertainment. The Olympics is seen as national pride kind of thing. Do I have any money? That's a good question. I have the 1,000 yen bill at the moment and the 10,000 yen bill, and they are both just old Japanese dudes on them. And then if you, on the back of the 1,000 yen has that big famous wave. That's pretty cool. On the back of 10,000, it's some sort of building or structure that I'm assuming is relatively important to someone, not me. I don't see how that's better than anime characters. And these aren't coins that are going into circulation forever or like the standard coin. These are just commemorative things that people would collect. So I don't see why that law would apply to that. But they're going to mint it. It's an official piece of currency. I guess you could then use it at stores and stuff. But I think the thing is, if they do a limited run, that makes it valuable. And anything that becomes valuable, that's when you get into scalpers and scammers and stuff. And that's going to end up causing trouble. 6 major ice cream makers have been accused of price fixing. Meiji, Morinaga, Lotte, Ezaki, and Agaki are all big ice cream companies. Like if you come to Japan and you buy ice cream, you're buying ice cream probably from one of these companies. That's fine. They have apparently gotten together and they're in violation of the anti-monopoly law, colluding to raise retail prices. Their offices were raided. So imagine you work in ice cream. Like, I mean, what more innocent job could you get? Like, I want to make ice cream. I want to make people happy. I want to jump into the world and try to, in those hot summer days, create great memories of people who just have a sweet ice cream, the chocolate ice cream, the vanilla ice cream, the others. It makes you just like, you'd think that people who make ice cream just sort of are weirdly good people, but that's of course not true. These aren't people, these are corporations, and corporations are all about screwing over the consumer in some one way or another. You're working for an ice cream company, you're at your desk, you're trying to think up a new ice cream, maybe a new flavor. You're trying to think of a new brand or a new packaging or something. With all the naphtha stuff we had 2 weeks ago, with all the packages losing all the ink because they couldn't get enough of the ink product because of the Strait of Hormuz and all these other issues. Then a whole bunch of cops run in and start taking all your files. That has to be a rough day for an ice cream maker. Last year in 2025 in sales, they made over $4 billion, not yen, $4 billion. So these guys are making more than enough money. And they're just sitting around being awful businessmen saying like, how can we screw people over another couple of yen and make even more money? Because that's what the world's about. It's not about making people happy. It's not about making a good product. It's not about, providing those memories. It's about screwing the consumer as much as possible to the point that the police actually get called up to our ice cream factory. Mei Hanada. Now, this Mei Hanada is famous if you're into girl bands, idol bands. I'm not. AKB. So I came to Japan in 2001. It was Morning Musume was the big girl band. I think it was 7. And then they just kept adding members. Then their popularity kind of went into decline a little bit and AKB started coming up. And so for the last decade, maybe 15 years, AKB, but they keep rotating out members. So a member will join, they'll stay for X amount of years, and then they'll move on. Maybe they move on to solo projects. Maybe they just disappear from the entertainment industry. Who knows? I don't pay attention to them. It's not generally my kind of music, so I don't really care. But I was fascinated always about sort of the rules and the contracts of the idol lifestyle. Because when you join a company that creates these like idol groups, they have full control over your life from the time you're like sometimes 12, 13, 14 years old. Like some of the really young ones are like in their early teens, and then they'll live in this path into their 20s and 30s. But a lot of times you're not allowed to date. Now they're claiming that was never a rule, but it's clearly been a rule. So Mei Hanada shaved her head and apologized on X after having her contract terminated. She is the first member to be fully terminated from the company. So they've had people and they're like, we're going to reduce your contract type, we're going to change you to another subgroup, or we're going to do something else. They've been moved around. That kind of thing has happened before, but no one's ever been outright fired. This is the first outright firing of a member of AKB48. The company says the reasons were multiple rule violations, including unauthorized private contact with a fan. Now, if they're saying there is no rule about, dating or falling in love with someone, they call it the love ban, which is why I keep thinking about that in the back of my head. Then the fact that she had contact with a fan shouldn't be unauthorized if that was a dating scenario. Unless the scenario they're talking about is something else, but they didn't explain it any other way. They just said unauthorized contact. So was she supposed to get permission to hang out with this fan? Maybe they were just friends. We don't know. We don't actually know what happened. She went online and made a 9-minute apology video similar to 2013 when another member had been photographed leaving her boyfriend's apartment. So this became really famous because I don't know if she was told to do it or not, but she had long hair. A lot of these girls have long hair, and that this hair is very valued to them. It's something they've spent a lot of time on, so it's something really important to them. So that's why shaving it off is a show of contrition. In 2013, this girl had a boyfriend. She was photographed leaving the guy's apartment in the morning, which would imply that there had been some nighttime activities. And so she shaved her head and apologized. She kept her job. I don't know. I think actually increased her popularity overall later. But there was this like big scandal that she had done this. And that was the first time I was introduced to the concept of idols are not allowed to date because they have to keep the image of availability, so there is the fantasy of the fan actually dating the idol. That availability is part of the fantasy they're trying to create by creating these idol groups. She says, Mei Hamada, so the recent one, says, I was told if you want to continue with AKB, shave your head and show your sincerity. So she thought if she shaved her head, she might actually keep her job. So she shaved her head, went on X and made a 9-minute apology video, still got fired. The company to the public is saying, since December 2025, she has been late and has had poor health. We suspended her activity so she could get treatment, and then we discovered a connection with a specific fan. And again, not saying what that connection is, being very vague. So like if they were saying she was meeting this fan and buying drugs, if she was meeting this fan and there was like something more nefarious going on, I might actually be able to accept that. But they're not actually saying that. They're just saying she's had contact with a fan. That's unacceptable, so she's getting fired. We tried to discuss, but she refused. We would absolutely never issue an instruction to shave her head. So they're saying that we didn't say shave your head, although I could see it being an offhanded comment, because a throwback to 2013, when this other person did shave their head and did keep their job, they might just throw that out in part of a conversation. They might not mean it. They might not, I don't know if they represent the company. I'm assuming these are managers, so technically they represent the company all the time. The love ban rule is not a rule and is being discussed again online. It's become a big issue online. Should these 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old women be allowed to have boyfriends? Because you're talking about controlling your life in a way where I would say like most people sort of start dating in their teens. And that's when they find out, you know, what do I want? What do I like? What do I don't like? This is where you kind of learn who you are and who you want your partner to be. And maybe you don't get married until later, whatever. I don't know. But without that experimental phase, it's much more difficult to find someone you're actually going to be satisfied with. So this has brought up the discussion again. So back in 2010, Tomomi Itano said she wasn't allowed to pursue a relationship. So she had someone she wanted to date, probably spoke to management properly, and they said, you're not allowed to date anyone, which would imply that you're being banned from dating. In 2013, Minagishi shaved her head, so that was the one we actually just mentioned. She was caught coming out of a boyfriend's apartment by a magazine. They published the pictures. She had to shave her head. She apologized. She got to keep her job. In 2022, Nana Okada, who was pro-rule. So this is the problem. She said, I agree with the idea of idols not being allowed to date. And then she was found out to have a relationship with an actor. She then had to apologize and graduated, but everyone was calling her a hypocrite. Now, graduated means you've gotten to this point where you're going to quit the group. So they have like it's very weird. I don't know why they call it graduated. I guess because idols tend to be younger. They're thinking like you get to a certain age and you're not an idol anymore, and then you want to graduate this and then move on to the next part of life, which again would be maybe individual activities, things like that. She was like, I'm pro these people not dating, but she was dating secretly, and then she got called out, and so then she had to quit in the official way, I guess. One of the managers, Mukaichi Mion, tweeted that he was reconsidering the rule, but then came back and said no such rule exists. So you can see that in their day-to-day lives, everyone knows maybe this is an unwritten rule or maybe it's an unspoken rule. And he's like tweeting like, oh, hey, yeah, we're going to reconsider whether or not this is acceptable, this rule that we have that people aren't allowed to date when they're in their teens and stuff. And then had to turn around and go like, oh shit, there's not supposed to be a rule like that. So now I have to go back and go, oh, there is no actual rule. So then what is she getting in trouble for? Why did she get terminated? If she got terminated for dating a fan, is it you're not allowed to date fans? Like maybe dating an actor is okay, someone else in the entertainment industry. Dating someone else is okay, but then there's still a ban on dating fans. And maybe she meets a fan and the fan is the kind of person she wants to spend her life with or spend her time with. That should be allowed. But then if she's not allowed to do that, that is a ban on dating fans. So the love ban is clearly a very real thing, but no one wants to admit it, because once they admit it, then it has to be like a human rights issue, because are you allowed to tell people they're not allowed to date or fall in love or have relationships? And we're in a country that is having like a massive decline in population. Is it really appropriate to have these people who aren't allowed to pursue relationships and maybe have babies and stuff? Because one of the idols, a long time ago, again, I don't remember what group or anything, she had like 5 kids with an actor. I mean, she did her part. So the love ban is clearly actually a real thing, but it's just not written down because that would probably be illegal. So these companies are trying to get around it. But if you actually try to date, you could lose your job, which is, even if it's not written down, that is clearly just as much punishment. And man, these are just people. Just start treating like people. And the fans, they get upset, but it's like, I'm sorry. You're not going to get to date them if the love ban is in place. Like, let's say that is your fantasy. Like this one fan, he achieved the dream. He started dating his favorite idol. How is it you're going to support the love ban? Because that actually makes it impossible for you to end up achieving your dream. But I guess the idea is they shouldn't be allowed to date anyone else, only me. And of course, that is the kind of weird, pathetic thing idol fans do. Yokohama City was terrorized by its own supervillain. This is actually weirdly true. You don't get to talk about this. They called him the Black Masked Bumping Grandpa. In Japanese, it was the Kuro Masku no Butsukari Oji-san. And so this is a real guy who did real awful things. So he was targeting elementary students who were walking to school. So kids in Japan, they meet sort of on the corner of roads, and then they will walk together to school in little groups. But sometimes you have to walk on your own to get to the corner. Part of my job when my kids were in elementary school is like once a month or once every 2 or 3 months, I would have to be sort of an escort. I wasn't guiding the kids. I just had to be there in case something happened. If something happened, I was supposed to step in as the responsible adult. This was shared among all the parents. I don't think anyone minded because it was like a 5-10 minute walk to the school, and you just be like, hey kids, all right, bye-bye, when you actually have the school in sight. May 26th at 7:24 a.m., a 7-year-old girl was walking to school. He ran up and body slammed the child. Now, I really want to know if he really body slammed the child. Like, did he jump in the air and land on a child? Because in my image, he's an adult male. He's supposed to be in his 50s or 60s. I actually don't remember what it was, but he's, in that weirdo zone that we have on Ninja News Japan. You could kill a child. Like if I body slammed a 7-year-old, I absolutely could kill them. Did he pick the child up and then like slammed him to the ground? That could kill a child. Like kids are springy and bouncy and stuff, but when you apply a certain amount of weight to them, they are crushed. It is one of the scary things about children is how easily they could be crushed. So if he's body slamming them, I actually kind of want to know, like, without any sort of flavor to the writing, what did he actually do? Did he pick the child up and throw them? Did he jump on them? Did he hit them? Did he slam them? On June 12th, a girl was waiting at a traffic light, and it says she was tackled. Now, again, what does that mean? He just ran up and like slammed his body into hers? Because that seems like what he's doing. If I'm taking this as accurate reporting, he like ran full speed into a child on the road. So this is on the road, it's on the sidewalk, so that's on concrete. That is doing real damage to a child. And as a parent, I can tell you he would not have the opportunity to do it twice if I was involved. Now, when he tackled the kid on June 12th, teachers saw it and they called the police. Now, the fact that the teachers did not chase this dude down, did not follow him, did not get him, really upsets me. Because as an adult in that situation, if I saw someone attack a child, I would step in. Now, I know it's really dangerous for a foreign person to step into a Japanese situation, but I could at least stop them. I could stand in between them. And if he tried to take off, I could follow him while speaking to the police. But the fact that they just like kind of saw this and called the cops and just let it go, that bothers me because it seems like those teachers didn't actually do anything. Police increased patrols around the area. They saw a man loitering in the area, and then they went up and spoke to him, and that led to his arrest. He admitted it. He said, "There is no doubt about what I did, and I have no objections." Now, I don't know if he means he has no objections to the way he behaved, or if he has no objections to being arrested or denying the charges or whatnot. But looking at Bengoshi.com, this came up, and it was talking about like what is the crime. So it's assault. There's two kinds of assault, because there's assault where you just like push someone and they don't get hurt. And then there's grievous assault, basically, where if someone gets hurt. So that first kid who was body slammed said he hurt her knees. But again, I don't know what that means. I don't know if it's like you had to spend time at home in bed because you couldn't walk. You had scrapes because you just kind of fell down. Because again, body slammed is actually really vague as a descriptor of what the person was doing. But all I know is that an adult man attacking, and it seemed primarily little girls. I think there should be like a new thing. I think someone is assault, but attacking children has to be a new worse crime because, dude, I would wreck that guy. Toritetsu is another. So we're learning some Japanese today. We learned Kuro Mask no Butsukari Oji-san, the black masked bumping grandpa, and Toritetsu. Toritetsu are the people who are super into trains. They love trains. They're super train nerds. And they take pictures of them. So their main hobby would actually be taking pictures of trains. I'm sure they ride them and try to find all the special ones. There have been stories in the past about these guys just like going way too far is the only way you can say it. They kind of fight with each other when they're trying to get the right picture. They want to like, I'm in the right spot, and then someone else wants to move into the same spot because they want the same picture from the same angle. So they fight amongst themselves. An innocent bystander will walk by and they'll all get really angry at him because he's ruining their picture. There is a fairly famous meme of a guy on a bicycle. So there was a train and it came around this one specific corner and all the train nerds were out taking their pictures. And this guy just rode past on a bicycle and they were all shouting at him. He didn't speak Japanese, so he started waving. And so that's actually a meme. I don't speak, I'll be like more than 5-8 years ago. So this is it. They get violent in a way. The thing is, these are all train nerds, so they're not like guys who are physical. So they'll shout and they'll say like, I will kill you, but then they don't actually like do anything. This seems to be a case of they decided to get a little more bold. This was the final run of the Cassiopeia connecting Ueno and Sapporo. So this is a very special train. It's like a sleeper train. You'll be on it for like a night. You sleep on the train, you get a nice bed, all this other stuff. And there is one place where there is a very scenic photo spot, and the Toritetsu value it a lot because I would assume it's coming around an angle or something, and you get to see it come around a mountain, and there's like maybe some ocean behind or something. Like I'm just guessing, but it's something like that. Maybe it comes out of a forest, it comes out of a tunnel, it goes into a tunnel, something like that that's really important to the train nerds. So a lot of them turned up for this very special day because it's the last run of this train. So if you can get a picture of the last run of this train in this very scenic spot, that best picture, it's going to be a dream come true for these guys. One of the guys came back to find his rental car had been vandalized. The windshield had been shattered and the body of the car had been kicked. So, I mean, they must have known it was this guy's rental because they didn't know it was his car unless he rents the exact same car every time. But that is absolutely crazy. They found that this guy was in the same place taking pictures. They must have hated him for some reason previously. And while he was out taking pictures, they went back and started booting the crap out of his car. And one 23-year-old was arrested, but police suspect it might have been like a party or a group that was involved, and they are still investigating. So they have crossed the sort of Rubicon, the border, the line, the event horizon of violence, where they've gone from, we're going to shout stuff at people to, we're actually going to do stuff, which is a little scary because these guys do travel in packs, and they are incredibly passionate. There is a temple in Asakusa, and a man saw another man, and he went up and accused him of trying to Toritetsu, which is, no, that's not right. He saw another man, and he went up and said, hey, I saw you were trying to take illicit pictures. So maybe he was trying to put his smartphone under someone's skirt. He had weird angles he was trying to take pictures of to get pictures of ladies, but he was taking illicit pictures, and he said, you were filming, weren't you? The money, 1 million yen. So basically he's saying, give me 1 million yen or I'm going to report you to the police. This last couple of weeks, there were a lot of people trying to blackmail other people. There was a guy who had had sex with a 19-year-old and then posted it online. And then 2 friends of the 19-year-old came up and said, like, you have to give us 4 million yen or we're going to like expose you to everybody or something. It was weird. That was interesting because it was like, who was wrong? The guy who did essentially revenge porn by posting stuff online, or the guys who then turned it into a blackmail opportunity? The internet was discussing who was right and who was wrong in that, which was very interesting. But this one, it's the same problem. So you have one guy who's taking illicit photos, like upskirt photos and stuff like that. And then you have another guy who tries to blackmail him. They're both bad in their own way. Well, the guy who was trying to do the blackmailing was also extra bad because he was able to recognize the first man as taking the illicit photos, I guess technique-wise, because he was the same kind of dude. He had actually been arrested for something similar. So our hero was arrested for something else. And then when they got on his phone, because they always search his phone, there were a bunch of pictures of women bathing. So I'm assuming in a hot spring, he had got his camera over the top of the fence or found some crack or something. And he was taking pictures of the women bathing, which he was not supposed to be taking. So police suspect he was also doing, tosatsu. I had just gotten my Japanese mixed up from the previous story. Tosatsu at the shrine and recognized one of his own. So he's like, oh, I recognize what that guy's doing. That guy's doing what I'm doing. His technique's not as good as mine because I recognize what he's doing. So here's an opportunity for me to be extra bad. Not only am I trying to take upskirt photos, maybe I could get $1 million out of this guy to blackmail him. So he claims he made the accusation. Like, I walked up to him and said, "You're taking illicit photos." But then he claims he did not ask for money, which is absolutely not true. 100%, if you were going to make the accusation and you're the guy who does this kind of thing, like, he didn't go, "Hey, brother, you and me should team up and take extra dirty pictures." That just made me immediately think, like, of each other, which would be safer. It's consensual. But no, you and I team up and we'll, like, take dirty pictures together. No, he saw an opportunity to try to extort someone because he knew what he was doing, and messed it up, because these kind of people are losers.